auto or driving tests, gymkhanas, or as we call them in Australia, motorkhanas. Same event, different names around the world. I've been doing them for 50 years. I've won club championships in them, state events. I've used my daily driver family hack, my tow car. I've made a space frame special from scratch just for these events. They are one of the cheapest but most enjoyable motorsport events you can do, because you can just run what you bring and you're able to socialise and watch all your mates as they run. It's a great fun day. I have written and run specialist training courses in motorkhanas. Let me give you a few tips. Jack up the back of your car and make sure the handbrake locks. You don't want that ratchet mechanism holding the brake on during an event. So what I do is I either tape over that button, or on a race car, I drill the handle and I put a self-tapping screw in it so I can lock that button down. So I can just grab it and pull it, and I don't have to worry about pressing that locking button. As far as tyres are concerned, you want maximum grip on the driven wheels. So on the dirt, you want knobby tyres like this, or if you're running a bitumen event, you want, and you're running on a budget, you want bald street tyres as fat as you can get them. But on a front wheel drive on the back, which obviously are not the driven wheels, you don't want big tyres. Whether it's dirt or tar, you want the narrowest tyres you can find. I've even run those 80km/h spares on the back, and that way you get maximum spin when you do handbrake turns, because your back end will spin and turn. I always avoid being the first car out in a Motorkhana for two reasons. First of all, because watching other people in a car that's similar to yours will show you where the difficult spots are in that particular Motorkhana, on that particular surface, on that particular day. And so you can look at it and see where Harry's had trouble and had to back and fill on a flag and go, I need to take a different line to avoid that. The second reason, particularly, is one that concerns dirt and grass. That's a surface that deteriorates, but if you're running on grass and it's virgin grass, farmer's paddock that's just been mowed, or a club ground that's just been mowed, the first couple of cars out will find that surface quite slippery because the tyres haven't dug in and got down to the hard stuff. And so that's the second reason why I avoid being the first car out on a dirt Motorkhana. This is the most important rule in Motorkhanas, because going in the wrong direction brings the highest penalty, WD. Try running in Motorkhanas for 30 years and never getting a WD. Books of diagrams of named tests are commonly used by Motorkhana meeting organisers. If that's the case in your area, get yourself a copy and study it. Look at other people going around, and when you can work out what test it is just by watching a car go around, you've got it. A slalom is where you've got a line of flags and you've got to go left, right, left, right, left, right, and weave through them. And the most common mistake that guys make, and I've seen top level racing drivers do this in Targa events and things like that, where they have a special stage with a Motorkhana, is they go on and off the throttle. And what happens is it throws the nose of the car out. And so the car goes out, you've got to pull it back in, the car goes out, you've got to pull it back in. The trick is to maintain a steady throttle. And so what you need to do, and you'll get this with experience in a particular car, is to guess a speed at which you can just set that throttle and leave it right the same as you go in and out, and you'll find you'll have a much smoother run. If you're using your throttle and the nose of the car is starting to throw out or the tail is coming around too much, you've got too much throttle on. So the best way through a slalom, and this is a trick worth its weight in gold, is that steady throttle and just concentrate on the steering. My secret is to back off 2 meters out from the finish garage, because you want the car under your complete control. You don't want it sliding and swerving all over the place. And as you enter the finish garage, having backed off that little bit means you're much less likely to lock the brakes, lose the steering, slide out through the side and get a fairly high penalty. Aim for a late apex and take particular note of where you need to have the car pointed on the exit, what it's got to line up with the next set of flags. So you make a violent turn with the steering wheel, riff on the handbrake, and here's the trick. Leave the power on. On a rear wheel drive, that will help the back of the car turn. Danger is that you'll overdo it and the car will drift out and get out of shape, costing you time or even spin out. So you need to be careful of that. But on a front wheel drive, your tendency is to turn the steering wheel, put on the handbrake and back off the power. Don't do that. Leave the power on. Don't take your foot off the throttle and reef that wheel and the handbrake, and the power will pull you right around. A lot of drivers aren't very good at driving backwards. They've had very little practice in it, particularly in their race car. And so they're fairly unpopular at Motorkhana events, and a lot of meetings don't have any reversing events. But at least in Australia, at a state level, I think from memory, there's always a requirement for at least 2 events containing reverse. Once you know how to drive your race car or your street car backwards in a Motorkhana, you won't be afraid of it, and you'll get a real buzz out of it, because it can become a real skill that you've got and an edge over everybody else. Where I start with reversing is I position myself in the seat. I'm not going to be driving looking out here only for a little bit of the event. What I do, the first thing is I ditch the shoulder straps, because you don't want any restriction. If it's a lap sash, just take the lap sash belt and slide it round the back. Position yourself so you're looking backwards, and then as best you can drive forwards like that. So I get in the start garage and I position myself in the twisted position as best I can, and then I drive the forward stuff. Then when you come to go backwards, you're already there and you don't have that awkward twisting. The second thing is throttle control is very important, particularly in a front wheel drive when you're going backwards. If you're unsteady with the throttle in a front wheel drive in reverse, the car will tend to slide all over the place. So my secret is, like with slaloms, you need a steady throttle when you're going backwards. You don't want to be on and off the throttle. Motorkhanas are designed to test your navigation skills. So making up chants and repeating them to yourself is a great way to find the right path through a test. Chants can be based on colours of flags or turn directions. So you might look at a test and say to yourself, left, right, centre, left, right, slalom back to the finish. Motorkhana test designs usually have a required layout for the colours of the flags within them. And those colours are often an overlooked key to finding the right direction through the test. So a Motorkhana chant based on colours might go blue, yellow, yellow, blue, all rights, blue, yellow, yellow, blue, back to finish, stay wide. Sometimes I use colours for Motorkhana head chants, other times I use directions, and quite often I use both. Yellow, yellow, right, blue, blue, left. The front end throw, my favourite move in Motorkhanas above all others, is commonly used in a test where you're heading towards the finish in reverse and you need to make a quick and sudden turn so the front of the car enters the garage in a forward direction in accordance with the rules. Remember that in Motorkhanas, the common rule is that your time does not end when the car is fully in the garage. Your time ends when the front of the car crosses a line about that far inside the mouth of the garage. So if you can do the front end throw and flick the nose of the car in that one movement from reverse, you can pop the nose of the car actually inside the finished garage. Don't believe me? Watch my son do it for the first time. Most common mistake guys make is they look out their back window and they head straight for the middle of the finish garage in reverse, try a front end throw. And what happens is they end up with the far side of the finish garage smack bang in the middle of the front of their car. The way you avoid this is to aim at a different point, because when you do a front end throw, your car, as it swings in reverse, will move sideways at least its own width. And so commonly the way the garages are set up is you have the start garage, a gap between them about the same width, and then the finish garage. And what I've learned is that when you're driving backwards to do a front end throw at the finish, you don't aim at the finish garage, you aim smack bang for the middle between the finish and the start garages. And then when you do the flick, you'll end up in the right place and aligned up with the front of the garage. The other thing that I did to perfect this technique was I just found a quiet little farmer's paddock, set up a few flags, and practiced. No substitute for it. Lastly, let me say these are driving skills not for the car park or for the street, but for proper designated legal Motorkhana grounds. And my final word would be, being a timekeeper at a Motorkhana event, particularly in the dirt where you get covered in dust, is quite a demanding job. And so as I go around each final test on a day's competition, I always, before I start, stop, get out of the car and thank the officials, because there's no racing without them.